So let me introduce our guests, two incredible Lumen co-founders, Drs. Michal and Merav Mor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Both.
So nice being here.
No, we're so happy that you're here. You're both PhD physiologists who have dedicated your careers to empowering all of us to improve our metabolic health.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible work, and we're going to dive into some of that research now. But before we do, let's just get some background as to like why did you pursue this topic? What made you want to study this?
Yeah, I think that I'm not going to say anything new when I'm saying that women's health is a topic that is not getting enough attention, especially in the field of metabolism, right? And we see it. When we are looking on our understanding and knowledge of how metabolism is changing throughout the different phases of our life, throughout the monthly cycle and throughout menopause, the studies that we can see is very limited. And, it totally makes sense because one of the limitations of the technology of measuring metabolism before Lumen, it's like the technology was very limited, so it wasn't enable us to really understand it. And I think that the second thing is that because we don't have that understanding, we also lack of guidance. Of how we should eat, how we should sleep, how we should train in those different phases. And even that the guidelines that we do have are not necessarily suitable for women, right? No. Because we took those insights from research men metabolism, and women are not a small man. No. And I think that maybe the last is, and to be honest, this is what said me the most, is the lack of awareness of how metabolism is impact our day-to-day, and how menopause is accompanied with different symptoms. And because of that lack of awareness, women experience lack of energy. They experience brain fog, gain weight. And those symptoms are getting worse the more they're getting close into menopause. And what Meravi and myself, this is why we founded Lumen, is being able to give every one of us a tool in which he can take control over his own body, being able to measure in real time what is going on, and based on that, take a smarter decision that are suitable for that moment in that phase.
Wow. So you mentioned a very important point that there is a gap in women's care, right? This women's care gap. I can't imagine how that's impacting women daily, like that gap. But like you mentioned, we have seen huge advancements in health tech and biohacking tools like Lumen trying to close that gap. Just going back on that topic you just mentioned, metabolism, and how is that supporting our efforts in closing this gap, metabolism and the research around that?
So maybe we should start with explain what metabolism is.
Great start.
Definitely.
Great start. Because a lot of us don't know what that is.
Yeah. And I think that I'm laughing because every time that someone is asking me that question, I understand that Meravi and I need
we have a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do because we imagine a world where people wake up in the morning and think to themselves, how is my metabolism? And want to improve their metabolism in order to achieve better health. So let's start with what is metabolism. Yeah.
Good start.
Good start.
Good start. Tell us.
Metabolism is our body engine. And as an engine, it can use fat, carbs, as fuel in order to produce us with the energy that we need.
Yeah.
So a healthy metabolism is when our body will use fat in order to produce a steady energy. For example, during fasting or resting or during low intensity workout. But at the same time, a healthy metabolism will shift into use more carbs, for example, after a high carb meal. In that moment, a healthy metabolism will use the carbs from, for example, eating a bowl of pasta. We'll use those carbs in order to use it for energy. A healthy body will use carbs when we need a boost of energy. For example, and now I need to perform. So my body is using mostly carbs in order to have me that quick and high intensity.
I think the important thing to understand is that the ability to shift between the two fuel sources, fat and carb, it's called metabolic flexibility. And metabolic flexibility, there's a strong connection to metabolic health, and really there's a strong, I think, relationship to different chronic disease, such as obesity, insulin resistance and diabetic, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease. It even play a crucial role in our lifespan, and it has a direct impact on longevity. So, for example, if I'll take a diabetic patient, okay, and then I will look after his metabolic flexibility, I'll see that diabetic patients are less flexible than healthy individuals. Last February, we published the biggest metabolic study ever conducted on the relationship between metabolic flexibility and BMI. And what we showed, we analyzed data, I think it was from 2,500 Lumen users. This is the amount of data.
Wow.
Just, to get some sense, up until Lumen, there was like about, I think, 1 or 2 million metabolic measurements. Today, Lumen has more than 60 million metabolic measurements.
Lumen is it's like a research institute, so it's
That's incredible.
and it enables us, to research metabolism in a way that was not available until Lumen started, until we started our journey. What we showed in that study is that obese users tend to wake up relying more on their carb storage versus a healthy BMI users. And when we analyzed their response to different meals contain carbohydrate, we showed that they tend to have less shift. So actually, they experience lower lumen level versus healthy BMI users. What does it mean? It means that as an obese subject, I'm unable to take the carbohydrate I just consumed and immediately use it to produce energy. So what happens is that more glucose will stay in my bloodstream, and over time it will cause to insulin resistance and diabetes. So I think we can also see it, in our community. You see people that reporting that suddenly they can eat much more carbs while still losing weight and wake up on fat burn. So this is very tailored to what just Meravi said. Metabolic flexibility enables us to process much better the food we eat into energy, rather store this as body fat.
So with that research you just mentioned, are we right to think that obese individuals have a lower metabolic flexibility because they're unable to shift between their fat and carb
Exactly.
usage?
They will exhibit higher lumen level following an overnight fast and versus a healthy BMI users, and they will exhibit lower lumen level in the postprandial state, so means post-meal, like consuming carbohydrate versus a healthy BMI users.
So it kind of highlights the importance of metabolic flexibility on anyone's weight management journey, right?
Absolutely.
And health and metabolic
and overall health and well-being.
Yeah, because 20% of healthy BMI individual have decreased, reduced. They have reduced metabolic flexibility, even though they have a very normal and healthy BMI. So weight does not tell us all the story.
Wow. Well, that's fascinating alone, but we've got more to cover. I can't wait. It's really inspiring to see a company like Lumen, right, take these massive steps forward in closing this healthcare gap that we've seen. And basically,
I think that, sorry, Mia, I think that, even when we are talking about the menopause symptoms, we're looking on them and we not really understand even the severity of that problem. Because when women experience those symptoms and we are not managing those symptoms, and you see it, women are much more likely to have an early retirement because we're having that brain fog and we are not able to have that energy in order to perform. It damages our relationship because we are much less likely, to enjoy social activities. And the last is because we gain weight, and especially belly fat, so we are in a higher risk to develop metabolic syndrome such as prediabetic and cardiovascular disease. So when we are looking at that, we understand the majority. I mean, how big is that problem? Huge. The lack of awareness around it it's sad. Seriously, it's sad.
Well, just a general lack of knowledge and understanding by the women themselves, like individuals, right? And I think this is where like the biohacking tools come into it, because basically we're empowering people with knowledge and like a better understanding of what's actually going on inside their body. Now, talking about women, we as ladies go through a hell of a roller coaster ride with our hormones. So these hormonal shifts, I mean, we want to understand, like, do they impact metabolism? How do they impact metabolism? But the research paper kind of focused on 2 stages of a woman's life, which I would love to hear, like, what happens in both. One is the stage where we still have a monthly cycle, pre-menopause, and then we got the menopause stage, so perimenopause to postmenopause, or the menopause transition. Now, the hormonal shifts are very different in both. So, Merav, could you give us, like, an overview of the findings for both the monthly cycle and the menopause? How do they impact our metabolism?
I would love to.
She will be more than happy.
So first, we understood that there is a strong connection between metabolic flexibility and chronic disease. Yet hormone has a major impact on our metabolism.
And we underestimate that impact, don't we, as women? We don't really realize.
And it affects our metabolism, mood swings, and probably we can elaborate more on the symptoms. And as women experience these significant hormonal changes during the different stages of our lives. So the latest paper we just published on women health, we focused on, like you mentioned, on those 2 stages. So women who experience regular monthly cycle and women in their menopause. Again, we analyzed data taken from more than 4,000 female Lumen users. Every time I'm like,
wow, 4,000.
When you look on research, previous papers, you like seeing 34 participants, 60 participants, 100 considered to be like a huge number of data. And we are here talking about 4,000, like almost
incredible
500,000 million metabolic measurements were taken to this, were analyzed in this paper. And what we showed is that during the monthly cycle, we have a cyclic metabolic pattern. So in the first half of the cycle, before ovulation, we tend to rely more on carb stores following an overnight fast, indicate we are less flexible. And the second half of the monthly cycle, post-ovulation, we tend to rely more on fat stores to produce energy following an overnight fast, indicate we are much more flexible. And the amazing thing is that, really amazing thing is when you're trying to correlate it to known hormonal changes during the different phases of the monthly cycle, you see that it so nicely correlate to progesterone changes.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. And when we analyze data in the second stage is when we analyze data taken from menopause women, we saw 2 things. One, they do not exhibit the same cyclic metabolic pattern female who experience regular monthly cycle do. The second thing is that they tend to wake up more relying on their carb stores. Means that there is a reduction in their metabolic flexibility.
Wow.
Also, when you're trying to look, what hormones, what are the hormonal changes we have during menopause, there's 2 main hormone. Again, there's a lot of, but 2 main. One is estrogen and progesterone. In both of them, there is significant reduction, almost to zero, during menopause. And again, it's so nicely, I think, we didn't measure hormone, but it so nicely made us think, okay, what is like the main player behind these changes? And it seems like it's progesterone. When we look on menopause women that taking hormonal replacement therapy, it even made our result stronger, because what we showed is, again, no cyclic metabolic pattern, but they tend now to wake up relying more on their fat stores. So they're like, by consuming HRT, they become more metabolically flexible. It's kind of, make you think maybe you can use Lumen to see the effectiveness of hormonal replacement therapy. And again, HRT consuming estrogen and progesterone, and both of them, we understand, play a crucial role in our metabolism.
So for the ladies watching, going, come on, Mirab, which hormone is to blame for, our fluctuating metabolic flexibility? So we can't say progesterone, but we can't say, is there enough data to say it's progesterone only?
No, I'm coming from research, so no, we didn't measure hormonal in these women. We can only look, for correlation. But I think, spoiler, it will be progesterone eventually. We still need to study
eventually
more.
Our body, it's a complex machine.
Yeah.
So at the moment that progesterone drop, estrogen drop as well, and there are so many, it's starting like a chain of different stuff that is happening. So it's very hard to say, okay, this is especially progesterone or estrogen. It's everything together.
I totally agree. It's cascade of hormone. Everything affect everything.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and we are like.
So to summarize all that amazing data that you just shared with us, what you're telling us is that women who still have a monthly cycle, the first half, the stage of their cycle,
from the moment they get their period until ovulation,
they are less metabolically flexible because the progesterone is declining.
We assume it because of progesterone.
We saw that.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay. But then in the after ovulation, the second half of the monthly cycle, the luteal phase, we see an increase,
in their metabolic flexibility.
Metabolic flexibility, them reaching fat burn, women reaching fat burn much more likely, right? Or tapping into their fat stores. Yeah. That's super interesting. And then menopause, you said that general reduction in metabolic flexibility, probably because of the declining hormones during the menopause transition. And finally, you mentioned that you saw a difference in menopausal women taking HRT, hormonal replacement therapy, a slight increase in metabolic flexibility.
Exactly.
So it really does show or highlight how the hormones, our female hormones, can impact our metabolism.
Definitely.
Actually,
Yeah.
wow. We could talk so much about the monthly cycle, but we're going to move on to that other major part of the research, which is the menopause transition, and really actually focus on, with all the data and the research you've shared with us now until this point, what can a woman listening now do today? Like what practical steps can she incorporate into her routine? Also premenopause, actually. Like, what can a woman in general do today to kind of minimize or even prevent some of those symptoms that she may experience during that transition? And we actually did a poll in the community. So you ladies told us of 3 sort of common symptoms that you're experiencing. So we're going to dive into each one, and you both are going to give us an insight into how, what they can do to kind of minimize these symptoms. So the first one, no surprise, weight gain, and especially abdominal weight gain. We usually often we complain about gaining weight around our hips, back of the arms when we're in premenopause, but then we see a sudden shift when we're reaching perimenopause that all of a sudden we're actually gaining around our abdomen. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that, it's more than that, because we feel like we are doing everything the same.
Exactly.
We are eating exactly the same, but still, I'm experiencing like changes in body composition. And as you said, I gain fat, especially in my belly.
All of a sudden. Like,
So
why? How? What can we do?
there are many things that we can do in order to manage that weight gain. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as I said before, let's do a post in the community in order to summarize all the things that you can do. But let's focus on one main one, which is we first need maybe to understand that why it's happened. And it's mainly due to our muscle mass. So at the moment that we reach to menopause, we are much more sensitive to muscle breakdown. Now, the interesting thing is that our muscles are packed with a lot of mitochondria. What are mitochondria? Mitochondria are those powerhouse within our cells that they take fat, carbs, and produce energy from it. So when we are losing muscle, we basically losing mitochondria. And then with less mitochondria, we have less ability to use fat for fuel. This is why we experience like fat accumulation, and this is why we are gaining weight.
I so like your explanation about what is mitochondria.
And I'm writing down all of that now. That was really good.
So what we can do about it, so again, there are many things, but first of all, we need to be nice to our muscles. Yes, we need to train them, we need to feed them. So part of the things that we can do is to incorporate resistance training as part of our routine and to make sure that we are having enough protein in carbs in order to support muscle growth.
So protein and carbs.
Protein and carbs. Now, I think that the ones that here that has Lumen, so you can take the pre-workout breath in order to make sure you have enough energy in order to support a high-intensity workout, because otherwise your body will break down muscles and you will get the opposite effect. And also by taking the wake-up breath, you get a daily plan that basically guide you toward the amount of carbs and protein in order to make sure that you're having enough of them in order to support muscle growth. Is that answered your question, Mia?
Yeah, so actually what you're saying is that we can actually risk under-eating on protein and carbs, and we shouldn't fear carbs, and to kind of like ensure that we're eating enough of both for those workouts. Because I think a lot of ladies are like, oh, let's try and reduce the calories, reduce the carbs, but actually...
Or incorporate, aerobic session. And aerobic session is great, but what we need here is to train our muscles. We need a resistance training. We need to weightlifting. Those are kind of things that will train our muscle and will make sure that we will have enough mitochondria the more we're getting older.
Perfect. Second common symptom. I feel like they're all linked in some way. I just want to say, like, all these symptoms are kind of linked, and I think the advice you're going to give the ladies and the men who are listening, you can use all that advice for everything, right? For like the second symptom, for example, is sleep disorders, right? Lack of sleep. Why, first of all, is this happening? Why do we find it hard to sleep as we're sort of heading into perimenopause? And what can we do about that? How does that impact on metabolism as well? Like all that. Can you cover all that?
You have a lot of questions.
Oh, a lot of questions in one here.
First of all, when we are talking about sleep disorder, as you said, we experience, we find it hard to fall asleep, but there is much more. I mean, when we finally fall asleep, we are not really having a good night's sleep.
No.
We're all the time waking up. And we have...
And it's not because of the baby.
It's not because of the baby. In that phase of our life, it's not because of the baby.
Because I'm still in a phase in which this is the main reason for me not getting enough and suitable sleep.
So here, if we spoke about our muscles before, here we are talking about two new players. Yes, we have the cortisol and we have the insulin. So let's talk about cortisol.
The cortisol sounds scary. What's that?
Not necessarily. Okay. Cortisol is our body stress hormone, but it serves us, when we need a boost of energy. For example, right now, cortisol push our mitochondria, our body, to use carbs for fuel. And carbs enable us to have that quick and high energy. But when cortisol is constantly high, it keeps our mitochondria all the time using carbs and trying to work very hard in order to give us that energy. Eventually, those little mitochondria are getting tired, and it's shortening their lifespan. And then, as I said before, with fewer mitochondria, we are less able to use fat as fuel, and then we have fat accumulation. So you can add it to the reason we spoke before of why we gain weight. But if you're going back to the sleep disorder, cortisol is like when it's all the time high, we find it hard to relax. So what you can do in order to decrease cortisol are different activities that reduce stress.
Yeah.
It can be meditation, it can be slow breathing technique, it can be walking in the park. Another thing that you can do in order to decrease cortisol is to have a diet which is rich in serotonin. Serotonin-rich food, serotonin maybe it's a neurotransmitter that's signaling to our brain to calm, so it's reduce cortisol. That's the type of food that contains serotonin, banana, walnuts, dark chocolate. So having a diet rich in serotonin can also help us reduce cortisol and make it much more easy to fall asleep. And if I'm going back to insulin, so as Meravi said, during menopause, we experience a decrease in estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah.
This causes us to become less insulin sensitive. Now, why insulin is important? Insulin his role is to help us to stabilize our blood glucose level. Now, when we become less insulin sensitive, what is happening during the night that we are experiencing those drop in our blood sugar level. This is why we're all the time waking up. So, and it's not the way people think, but having a meal before going to bed that is rich with carbs, complex carbs, combine it with protein and fat in order to make sure the slow absorption of that carbs into the bloodstream will enable us to keep our blood sugar level stable during the night and will help us to sleep better.
So just to summarize, we focus on stress here actually and cortisol, which I said was scary, but it actually still is pretty scary. Like if it's in that chronic elevated state, that is going to impact our sleep, but also our weight management, right? Because you mentioned like if you are in a stress, high stress situation, your body's going to be more likely to, preserve its fat stores.
Exactly.
But for those of us who like Lumen users, you can take like before bed measurement and the wake up measurement and to see if you experience like a shift. So if you're getting enough sleep, you will see like a decrease in like Lumen level, more shift into fat stores versus like if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be like stuck before and after.
And I want to add here, from my own personal experience, Lumen is a great tool to show you when you are in a stress response, which is a game changer. So like understanding, maybe I did get stressed in that high intensity interval training class that I did that used to be great for me in the 30s or in my 20s, but now, reaching maybe going into my 40s, it's actually I'm seeing my body's in stress response afterwards. So maybe it's too intense.
Lumen is a great tool to experiment yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, meditation is working or it's not working for me.
You can see.
Exactly. By being able to measure what your body is using before the meditation, and then measuring what your body is using after your meditation, you're basically able to understand the effectiveness of the meditation. Now, I can say that meditation has zero impact on me, but this is exactly how our biggest sister, she just celebrated 50, and her cortisol level is high, so she's taking a breath before the meditation, and then she's doing the meditation and she see how her body shifted now toward using much more fat.
It was amazing because she didn't change anything in her nutrition or like exercise routine. She was like I remember this talk when Michali told her, just try maybe a fitty to calm. I don't know, think of things you can do.
And she said, I'm not in stress. I mean, okay, you're not in stress, but maybe just test it.
Yeah. And it's funny you should say that because I noticed in the community a lot of people feeding back like how they incorporate mindfulness and meditation in the evening before bedtime, and they're noticing more fat burn in the morning.
Yeah, especially in modern life, we are all the time we experience like chronic stress, even without paying attention. Being a mom and work and everything, and being a spouse, and you want to to divide yourself to so many parts and
we
be
get
able
used to that.
to give everybody whatever they want.
And then
Not
we normalize
easy.
it, don't we? We normalize it, but actually, subconsciously, we actually stressed.
Yes.
Wow. So the third symptom that a lot of
curious.
our, a lot of our
I'm also.
community members said that they experience
Let's guess.
is low energy throughout the day.
This is a good one.
It's good because, okay, we can maybe have a poor night's sleep, but then, you know, if we every day waking up and we actually don't have any energy, even into the afternoon, like why, like what can we do about that, and how can Lumen guide us?
So we need to understand that low energy is coming because we are not able to use fat in order to produce energy.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, when our body is working efficiently, it means that we can use those unlimited stores of energy in the form of fat in order to take it and produce a steady energy during the day. Now, from what I guess is that those women that experience that drop of energy, they also experience craving for carbs. Now, why is that?
Yeah, we want to head for the sugary snacks in the afternoon. when
Again,
we're
these
just
tiny
finished.
mitochondria.
Yeah, because we are not able to use fat, so we all the time use carbs. But carbs, as I mentioned at the beginning, I mean, carb reserves are pretty limited.
Yeah.
So this is why we need all the time carbs in order to give that body that fuel of energy.
Yeah.
So the things that we can do in order to manage that drop of energy are basically everything that we can do in order to improve our body ability to use fat as fuel. Now, I think that, you know, the common strategy that we're all talking about is intermittent fasting, right? So what is happening during intermittent fasting? At the beginning of the fast, our body is starting to use carbs for fuel. At the moment it depletes his carb stores, glycogen, it started to shift into using more fat for fuel. In that moment, our mitochondria, it's like training in using fat for fuel. Now, there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
It's always a catch. If we're going to push our body too hard into using fat, what we will do is our body will break down muscle, will convert it into carbs, and we will use the carbs in order to fuel ourselves. So, fasting is an amazing tool.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to manage it. And again, for those that are Lumen users, how you use Lumen in order to optimizing your fasting window is taking a measurement at the beginning of the fast and then during the fasting. As long as we see a shift toward using mainly fat, it means that the fasting is effective. At the moment that we started to see a shift back toward using more carbs, it means that our muscle now is starting to break down muscles, and this is a very good time to finish the fast with a healthy meal.
Because otherwise, you get the opposite effect,
Yeah.
and you decrease your muscle mass.
Wow. And I want to say to the community that we've unpacked a lot in this talk. We will summarize everything we mentioned today. You will have that and also a link to this talk so you can rewatch it. We're about to go into our favorite part, the audience Q&A. Yes, there's more questions. There's more questions. So you guys...
I can talk about metabolism.
Oh, I know. Don't-
Metabolism is life. I can talk
Good.
about metabolism for life.
This is what we talk about in like Friday
Live and
night.
breathe metabolism. So you guys in the community have been very busy writing in your questions. I have them here. We've picked out a few. Now, I think we did answer most of them during this talk. But I think I'm going to just pick out a few here that we can like sort of recap some of the information that we spoke about earlier. The first one, very good question. How drastically different is metabolism and weight loss during perimenopause? Now, yes, it is different. Like Michal and Marav mentioned earlier, those hormonal shifts that we experience during premenopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, they are going to impact our metabolism and subsequently our weight loss journey. So, yes, they're very different. I could go on and on and on about that one, but a good question to start off with. The next one, I love this one actually, not just for women, but also for men. She's asking, I'd like insights into breaking weight loss plateaus for the postmenopausal woman who's not taking HRT. But I feel like everyone has a weight loss plateau. So if you can answer that around postmenopause, but also just in general, how can someone break that?
Again, I mean, the way that we want to solve it is by improving our body engine, our metabolism. Because what is happening is that when we want to lose weight and we are not doing it in the right way, yes, so we are starting to eat less and less and less until we reach to a moment where it's like, it's ridiculous. I hardly eat anything and I'm not able to lose weight, and I'm reaching that weight plateau. The reason is that our mitochondria is so not used to use fat as fuel, so we need to eat a ridiculous amount of food in order to push her to use fat for fuel. So the smarter things to do is to train, is to eat more, is to repair our body metabolism in a way that it will be so much easier to use fat as fuel. So a healthy metabolism, I mean, me, for example, yes, if I will breathe to Lumen when I'm resting or when I'm sitting next to my deck and I'm working, I will see that my body is automatically shift into use fat as fuel. I don't need to be in a caloric deficit in order to be able to be there. So this is what is the healthy way to do that. By the way, this is why most people gain all the weight back, because we eat a ridiculous amount of food, which damage our metabolism, and then we cannot stick with that amount of food. And at the moment that we eat a bit more, we immediately gain weight.
And I think, going back to what we mentioned earlier, like, for anyone who's reaching a weight loss plateau, I think, you know, you mentioned like metabolism changes, and it changes because our lifestyle changes. Like there might be more stress one day, or we might, you know,
hormone changes.
It's changing on a daily basis.
New baby at home, or you know,
on a daily basis. Our metabolism is changing on a daily basis, Mia. It's like amazing. The same that I'm not expected to eat the same amount of food and to sleep the same when I'm running a marathon. It doesn't make sense that I will eat every day exactly the same. My metabolism is changing on a daily basis.
And we need to adjust, you know, our lifestyle choices accordingly. This is
And that's
exactly
what
what Lumen enable you to do.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, diets don't work. We know that. You know, they might work for a short period of time, but then they don't keep up with those changes that we experience in our life and our metabolism. So, and I think this is where Lumen comes into it, because, you know, like, for example, today I did a workout, so my Lumen knows that. So I'm going to get more carbs because my body actually needs that today. But yesterday I sat all day and I had a lower carb day, but my Lumen worked that out for me. So, you know, the macro recommendations change every day, and that's going to help us out, right?
Exactly.
And overcome these weight loss plateaus, potentially.
I think that, just to add, one of the problems that we have today is that, and we all know it, yes, one diet doesn't fit all. But we don't really have the tool in order to understand, so what is the right diet for me, right? I mean, and we all experience that things that you used to do in the past is not working for you anymore. Things that is working for her is not working for me.
I wanted to ask you too, because you're twins.
Yes.
And I want to actually like ask you, like, you're both using Lumen for many years now.
Wow.
What works? What, just
10 years.
Out of interest, what works for you, Merav, that doesn't work for you, Michal?
I think that
What have you learned?
So I think I can
You go
experience.
first.
Yes, I think, you know, I used to be very, very active, and today I have like 3 kids, so I'm much less active. And so the main thing Lumen helped me to understand, and now I'm much more easy, like find it very easy to apply, is now I'm more manage like my macronutrient during the day. So if in the past I used to do, you know, I can eat carbs every day and even before like going to sleep, especially if I have like a long exercise training the day after. Today, like I'm exercise less, and what I'm managing is the macronutrient, but during the day. So I'm not significantly reduce them, especially the carbohydrate, but I'm like trying to eat them more in morning time and maybe a little bit at lunch, and then dinner as like skip completely carbohydrate.
So you fit in all your starchy carbs in the morning.
And
that's
noon.
working best for you.
Yes.
But Michal, does that work for you?
No, she trained a lot. She trained much.
I train a lot, I eat a lot, I sleep well, I manage my stress level. I'm doing like a 5-minute meditation every morning. This is what helped me to keep my my health in balance, because eventually it's all about balance, right? We are not really able to be to do 100% in nutrition, in movement, in sleep, in stress release activity. I mean, this is not really what it's not whole in the reality, right?
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So I'm use Lumen in order to balance my choices. So I know that in day that I'm more that my cortisol is high, so I will do more workout, or I will do meditation in order to balance it.
And you can play with it, right? Because every day you have limitation. You have like you want to go out with friends, so then the day after you can prolong your fast. Lumen, like this real-time biofeedback, enable you all the time to take smarter decision about your health. It's a game changer.
And I love using you as an example, you two, because it just highlights the point about how we need to personalize our health journey completely, because you're basically from the same genetic pool, but your healthy habits that you've incorporated work totally differently, right? You've got two different bodies, so two different health journeys. And I think that's where tools like Lumen, I think, really optimize someone's health journey, right? It's just, I loved using you two. I threw that one in. That was a surprise question. Okay, so next question from our community. I like this one. She really goes into like her journey with Lumen and her metabolic flexibility score. So the Lumen users listening, you'll know all about the Flex score. So she's postmenopausal. She started with a 7.5 Flex score, so an okay Flex score. It went up to 17.5, which is incredible,
great.
over the next few months. However, the last 2 months, her Flex score has dropped to 9.2. Now, no changes in nutrition. She's doing everything the same. However, she started to experience increased hot flashes. So my guess is, she says, it's estrogen. I'm not on HRT. So how do I get back to morning fat burn when maybe it's the hormone causing this? You know, this lack of fat burn that she's experienced and the drop in her metabolic flexibility score, which she probably learned all about earlier on when we talked about the hormonal shifts. But what can she do?
So I think that, Mia, as we mentioned before, there are many things.
Yeah.
The things that I spoke was about focusing on preserve our muscle mass, to manage our cortisol, our insulin, and different strategies such as strength training, make sure that we're having enough protein and carbs, strategies such as intermediate fasting or breathing technique, meditation. All of these can help with improving our ability to use fat for fuel, but also pushing our body being able to use carbs for fuel without storing it as body fat.
Or going back to your example of how you two have used Lumen, and I think this will be a great advice for anyone, like I have no name here next to this question, but for any woman who's seen like this decrease in metabolic flexibility is, experiment with your Lumen like you both have. Like, your hormones are going to change, and so too maybe the lifestyle habits that you incorporated. Maybe you need to add some more, maybe you need to add less. So it's all about experimenting with your Lumen, seeing maybe she does need to change up her nutrition or maybe incorporate less intense workouts. I don't know, but all about experimenting. Finally, last question. We had quite a few questions around fasting. I know we've touched on it a few times today, but I think it's a nice summary. So this is a woman saying that she's menopausal, 60 plus in age, trying to lose weight, waking up in a 1 or 2, which is a Lumen level 1 or 2. For those of you who don't have a Lumen, it's fat burn. She's asking, should she continue fasting until she sees a higher Lumen level to a Lumen level 3 or above, which is carb burn? Or does that mean her body's getting stressed? When should she break her fast? What's, for anyone who's doing that intermittent fasting as a strategy to manage their weight,
So
what should they look out for?
So as long as our body is shifting toward using more fat, the fasting is effective. At the moment we shift toward using more carbs, it means that we should end our fast. Now, when we should, until when we should push ourselves into using more fat, it's individual. I mean, for me, reaching to Lumen level 2 in the morning, which is not using 100% of fat, is enough, because I like to have a breakfast. I mean, I'm hungry in the morning. So each one of us, can manage it based on his own preference.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like, listen to your body's cues. Like, if you're hungry, eat. Like, that's what we recommend first, right? If you're full, stop eating. And we do have some Lumen users going, I haven't met my macros today, and I'm so full. Do I need to carry on eating? And we're like, yeah, don't worry. But with the fasting, I think it's a good point. Like, you need to stop before you hit those higher Lumen levels, right? We don't want to be in the stress response already, right? We want to still be in fat burn. So for those of you in the community fasting, use your Lumen. As Michal mentioned earlier, do the check-ins. Like, take some measurements during your fast and see how you feel.
And it might change from day to day because it depends on what we eat aging
before.
the day before, and how we sleep and our stress level. It's changing from day to day.
And our hormones. I
And
mean, there'll
our
probably be some
hormones.
days we can't fast
Exactly.
Yeah,
as
and
long.
the amount of exercise, right? The energy expenditure, like what is the caloric balance we are in it.
Wow, we could carry on, but
Definitely.
I think we've run out of time. But thank you both for joining us today. I mean, it's been so fascinating, and we've covered so much.
Thank you, Mia.
So for everyone listening, we are going to have a summary. We're going to have a link to this talk so you can rewatch it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a really special offer in honor of our 10th anniversary. Where's the time flown? Like 10 years. We've got a discount on our website for $100 off, so you can get your Lumen for $199. However, for our listeners, you've got an extra discount, 15% off on top of the $100 with the code LIVE, L-I-V-E. So thank you all for joining from around the world. Thank you, Michal and
Thank you,
Mirav.
Mia.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Thank you, and have a lovely day.